This is Track Talk, and we're back with a game of 1899. We're going to just jump right into it. Batsman is going to lead off with a bid on Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi is not a bad private, but it is pretty cheap, and I worry that bidding early on it leads to degenerate auctions where there's an early ripcord before all the privates have bids on them and are appropriately bid up. We'll see what happens here. H, love this name, very easy to pronounce, obviously. Keeping it simple. H is going to bid on the Sumitomo. Blocanone will be taking EMI. So again, this is a recipe for a very early ripcord here, and we may see a lot of these privates going for face or near face. Hellas Gaming, he will join on Sumitomo, so I imagine we'll see Batsman pull here. Batsman may be allured by getting two privates for cheap, but he does open up the more expensive privates, the Dugo and South Io particularly, for the other players if he were to pull here. Instead, he will bid on the Ime, so maybe recognizing that danger. And H now is not the sole uh, player on a private, so I don't imagine we'll see him pulling here. And he puts the sole bid on the South Io Blocanone. He's going to take Dugo. And Hellas Gaming also does not have a sole private, so hopefully we'll be joining one of the other players on their privates. Would like to see him, for instance, take the South IO and hope that that motivates the other players to continue bidding up privates. However, if he allows Batsman to remain alone on Mitsubishi, now that the other privates have bids on them, it may be much more attractive for Batsman to just pull. Hellas does join on the South IO, kind of as expected. And the reason I picked that over the Dugo in terms of recommending he bid there is because the H player operates before Blocanone, so gives the other players opportunity to block Blocanone from getting a face value private. We'll see if Batsman pulls here. He's actually going to pass, so that's interesting. I don't think it's wrong to pass in the auction if you're happy with your position. So he may be happy with the concept of getting Mitsubishi for almost face and then bidding up the Ime a little bit. I don't think it would have been terrible for him to pull here either, though. Blocanone would get a pretty cheap Dugo, but if he gets the Dugo and the Ime, he's not going to be floating early, and Batsman will have some decent privates to buy in. Certainly not the highest value, but $50 of private value to buy in is not unreasonable in a game of 1889, I don't think. H, he will join on the Dugo, so he's on a bunch of privates now, all of them pretty expensive. Needs to make sure he doesn't leave the auction with all three of these, which I'm sure the other players will be happy to prevent. Blocanone, is he going to pull here? The only player with uncontested auction or private is Batsman. Blocanone, he is on Ime and Dugo, and may be happy to just let that be the case and pull. Let's see. He does. So I think that he probably just bids once for the Ime, hopes Batsman takes it, and then goes all out on the Dugo, understanding that H is on three expensive privates and is not going to be able to price and force on all three of them. So he just passes right away. I think I would have bid once there, but I think he's probably recognizing what we just discussed and is really going to focus on the Dugo. We see H involved in the auction for the first time. He will be bidding against Hellas. Hellas also does not have a private, so both of these players want to make sure that they are not stuck with the Uno Takamatsu, and they're both on the South Io and the Sumitomo, so we'll be seeing them again. I think I'd much rather leave with the South Io for a reasonable price, so I would be, if I was in this situation, bidding up the Sumitomo just a little bit to try and hurt the other player's ability to compete for the South Io. And H bids 65. Hellas going to bid 70. I think if I'm H here, I probably pass. And he does. So I think so far the auction is going pretty well. He's now on the Dugo. And I think, again, well, so now Blocanone and H are competing for least revenue in the auction, at least so far. H probably happy to win or lose Dugo. I think if Blocanone really pushes him, H is going to back out and just set his sights on the South IO. Blocanone, on the other hand, really wants the Dugo because he only has $20 of private worth of buy-in right now. So probably much more motivated to win this particular private. Unfortunately, based on his expenditure, I don't think he'll be starting a company in the first stock round if he wins this private. So we'll see what he wants to do. He bids. H probably bids at least once here and does. Blocanone actually gives it to him. That's a pretty good price for the Dugo. I don't think H is upset about winning that, and this means that Blocanone will be getting the Uno Takamatsu. So H and Hellas are, a little bit less incentivized to bid up the South IO here. We'll see which one of them ultimately takes it. Probably neither one of them is highly motivated to win this, but I would take it if it goes cheap enough. H bids 95. If I'm Hellas, I would consider just passing here. But he bids 100 and H will pass. So kind of as we expected, neither player really wanted to push it for that private at this point, now that they're not in the frying pan or out of the fire into the frying pan for the Uno Takamatsu. Blokanone should be taking the Uno Takamatsu here, and he actually passes. So I hate when this happens in games. I think it's just um, so bad. We'll see how many rounds they go with this, and he takes it after that. So let's just see how this changes the game state. If Blokanone doesn't pass here, everybody has. So Batsman and H have enough cash to float. Hellas does not. And by Blokanone passing, he has given nobody quite enough money to float that didn't already have it. And he's not really in any better position, having only gained $5. So not game breaking per se, but still just sloppy and unnecessary. And he does eventually take it, as we saw before. Hellas doesn't have the cash to float, may look to reserve a presidency, as he's going to be pretty close to floating in his next operation. Will he actually have enough money? I don't believe so. I think he's $5 short. So he's going to be sitting on these shares for 2 operating rounds if he does try and reserve the presidency, which may be a little bit too painful. May just see him buy paying shares in other companies' floats. He passes. Batsman does have the money to float. My preferred companies are the SR and KO here. He has Mitsubishi, may be tempted to go TR. I think the TR is a trap for the early game revenue, but we'll see what he thinks. He does take the TR again because of his Mitsubishi. This makes a very attractive investment opportunity for Hellas and Blokanone to put their cash. H, he is going to be starting the IR. He has the Dugo. And is he looking to exchange this company? No, he has enough to float without exchanging the private. So we'll be just floating the IR. IR is okay. I do think its map position is a little bit worse than the SR, and it has fewer tokens than the UR, for instance. So not my tier 1 company, but certainly a strong one. As a side note, I think exchanging the Dugo is almost always a terrible idea. So I'm happy to see that he's not going to be doing that. Blokanone probably buying TR here, just passing for now. Hellas also passing, so it looks like they'll be just allowing the other players to float their companies and maybe buying in the next stock round. TR probably using his private and then buying 3-2 trains. And he also tokens, so he's going the full Monty, running hot early build. Now that the other players have seen this, I expect they will be buying these TR shares. IR probably going to be laying a sharp turn, and does he also buy 3-2 trains? That would be quite interesting. I think that's bad news for the players that have not floated companies, mostly block and own, because that means that the game is going to be accelerating rather quickly. They're not going to have time to just sit on their private income very long, I don't think. We'll see what he does. So he does. All the 2 trains have been bought. That is very aggressive play. So the players with the private companies that are not the presidents are going to be buying paying shares, reaping the rewards, and selling down and hoping to start their own companies. But this does get the train rush off to a pretty fast start. He actually buys into the 3s, so it's even faster than I expected, and immediately buys in his private. This is an extremely fast yellow phase. Okay, so H is going to have the most money. Actually, that's not true. The other players didn't invest their shares, but H is far ahead because he has 5 shares and has the most money on top of those shares. But we'll see how this wants to go for the other players. Does H sell out here? I think that I would be a little bit worried of that being the case. So I would probably prefer, as block and owner Hellas, to invest in the TR over the IR. The TR revenue should be a little bit higher as well, I believe. but I would be very reluctant to invest in the IR before we see what H wants to do here. So both players buying TR shares, Batsman without money for a share, passing. H, he will buy a paying share of the TR, so just getting some extra revenue. And Blokenone going to be buying TR as well. We'll probably be seeing this company float up actually. And they have surrendered priority. Batsman, uh, well, I guess this might be safe if they stop here and H buys one more share, but they need to be a little bit careful that Batsman doesn't buy in his privates and then dump the TR on them. His privates are not super expensive, but he could, with a 3 and private purchase and maybe laying an $80 track somewhere, leave the TR pretty cash poor for a dump. TR passing H. He does buy a final share in the IR. We'll see if Blokenone and Hellas are going to be cautious here, if they'll continue investing. Unfortunately for them, this is a little bit of a prisoner's dilemma, specifically for Blokenone, because he could pass and then realize that Hellas is not passing, and he is still in danger of a dump, and now he's just lost initiative in the stock round. We'll see how this plays out. Blokenone, he does invest, no hesitation. Hellas will also invest. So it looks like Batsman may very well end up with priority, which puts Blokenone on the chopping block, so to speak. Blokenone continuing to invest, and Hellas investing as well. So both of these companies will be floating up. Batsman may look to dump the TR in the next stock round, but I will say that as the Yuno Takamatsu player, if you have a dumped company, one, you're going to be in yellow, and two, you can just withhold in order to buy in your expensive private and get 100% of that company's revenue, whereas usually you're limited to 60%. The only issue with that is if your trains rust before you're able to run, which if Batsman is able to dump and then immediately start a company, we may see that happen. Probably not, though. There's a bunch of threes before the fours come out, so maybe it wouldn't be game breaking if the TR is dumped, but something to consider for sure. Looks like everybody's passing, so Batsman will have priority. He is operating the TR, and may look to upgrade Nahari here. He's going to have a second operation to lay some expensive track if he does look to dump, but we'll see. He does upgrade and runs his 3 trains for 170, pays it out. And he also buys a 3 train, so he will have potentially even a better run if he wants to lay a loop here, and he can operate all 4 of his trains. IR probably laying a second sharp turn city on Saiju, and he does token to run all 3 of his trains. He's actually not able to take advantage of the 4th train that he owns, and will not be able to take advantage of it during this operating round. He's going to run for 140, a little bit worse than the TR as commented, and he is train locked. Second operation of the TR, so I think if we see him lay some expensive track here and buy in his privates, that probably means this company's going to be dumped. It would be nice for him if he found a way to drop his last token as well, but I don't think he's going to be able to. One strategy he could have considered was laying this track and then Akita to get rid of that token, but it would have hurt his revenue a little bit, and he is the majority investor in this company currently. So he just dropped the loop and will be running 4 trains, running for 220, which is pretty monstrous, but this will hopefully not last for much longer. He's buying in his privates, and he actually doesn't lay Ozu, so suggests to me that he may be looking to, well, actually, I don't know how to interpret that. If you wanted to start the UR, you'd lay track that's helpful for the UR, but if you didn't want to start the UR, you would also probably lay bad track for the UR. So I'm a little bit confused on the decision making there. Because you're doing one of those two things, either starting it or not starting it. So unclear to me why he passes that private ability. IR upgrading one of his cities and looking to head to Nihama, but as commented, unable to run all 4 of his trains. He's running for 160, a little bit better, but still trailing the TR. And into the next stock round, this is the big question. Does Batman dump here? He could sell, he actually could float without selling any shares. He could sell 1 share for a higher par, or he could just full on dump. I think that the TR is in a little bit of a rough spot, so I would probably dump here and just float a company for max value, but we'll see what he decides. He does dump. Blokenone is going to become the president. This was fairly telegraphed and fairly obvious, I think. Blocanone, as commented, does have the ability to just withhold twice and then buy in his expensive privates. So not the end of the world for him, but pretty bad news for Hellas because Hellas is now locked up his liquidity in the TR. Probably going to have a hard time floating for anything worthwhile in this stock round. And actually, the TR, as a result of floating up and just being ledged, doesn't fall into yellow. So that's a little bit worse for Blocanone than I had thought it would be. Batsman pars the SR. He actually doesn't par it for max value. So is he looking to par two companies this stock round? That would be very dangerous for the TR player, I think, because that greatly increases the risk of the TR falling back without getting to run the two trains. H is passing, so just going to see how this plays out before spreading his money around, presumably. Blocanone, does he buy TR here? I think that's a mistake. I think you sit on your cash and then potentially invest in the SR or whatever second company Batman's going to float because you're probably looking to withhold on the TR and just buy in your privates. At least that's the way I would play this. He is selling out of the IR, okay, and he will par the UR. He does he does have enough cash to float this at 75, so that's good news for him. He will be able to have a company that synergizes with the TR and get a little bit of company money to protect him from the train rush. Hellas, as a result of the operating order, is really in a bad spot now. He's lost a lot of his net worth because of the sales of these two companies. Can still float, but it has worse options in companies and, as noted, lost the net worth. Does have the KO available to him. That's probably the best company to take. We'll see what he decides. He's just going to pass. That's interesting. I think that's a mistake because you're running the risk of losing out on any good companies if you play too passively in the stock round. Batsman probably continuing to float the SR, could reserve a second presidency potentially, but if he does that, he needs to be very careful that he doesn't lose one of those presidencies with the other players splitting his liquidity. So probably wants to float the SR first before getting greedy. He does, in fact, just take the KO, though. So he should not be allowed to float both of these companies uncontested. The players should fight him for these presidencies. And he will, with that strategy, he will not be able to maintain the presidency of both companies because he can only buy shares one at a time. We'll see if they collude to prevent a runaway from Batsman here. H, he is continuing to pass, so looking good for Batsman. Blocanone, floating his own company. Hellas, is he going to pressure anywhere? He is buying TR, so he actually takes the presidency of the TR. That's a terrible idea. The twos are guaranteed to be rusting as a result of the operating order now, and it has basically no cash for his private buy-in. So really strange decision there. Meanwhile, Blocanone is just thanking his lucky stars probably. Batsman buying SR, getting everything he wants in this game. H, he is passing. Blocanone is continuing to float the UR, just needs one share left, and Hellas is passing. Batsman is now floating the KO, so he's just alternating between these two companies. Needs to be careful that he's done the math and has enough liquidity, or I guess even net worth, to float both of these companies without having to sell one share in both of them. So he needs 150 for the KO and 160. Looks like he will have enough. So he will be able to just slowly float both of these companies. Again, this is preventable, but at this point, with 3 shares instead of just 2, maybe he will be able to get away with it. H, continue to pass. I am unclear what's going on with this player. He may have just left the game. I don't know why he's sitting on $200 and potentially going to lose priority if he doesn't start taking actions. Blocanone floated. Hellas buying a UR. Is he just looking at trash value? Batsman continue to work on his companies. H now. So I guess he was just waiting all this time to trash value of these companies. I don't know that that's really worthwhile. You hurt the players minimally. Maybe you get one more run out of your twos if you trash enough of these companies. Would only have to trash them one spot to have them operate after the IR. So I guess that's what he's going for, but he's helping the TR almost as much as he's helping himself, if not more. So I don't really like that strategy. Blocanone passing, Hellas passing, Batsman continuing to float, H passing, So now I'm just really confused. I don't know what these players are doing. Are they just buying one share in each of these newly floated companies? It seems very passive. H now buying. It looks like that's what they're doing. Okay. Hellas also buying SR. These two players, H and Hellas, are on the same wavelength, taking the same strategy. Batsman does complete his float, so has gotten away with murder and floated two great companies for pretty solid pars, and may not actually lose priority here depending on what H does. Looks like everyone is, so Hellas is given a back priority, is actually selling the share he bought in the TR, and what is he looking to buy? He buys a second share in the IR. So risky investment, right? If they don't tank the value of these companies, I don't think these twos are going to be running. So I don't know that I'm a huge fan of this. H now starting to tank values. So I guess they were just waiting for their moment. And looks like all the companies are going to be tanked a little bit. The downside of this, of course, is that you lose priority, but it's probably worth losing priority to ensure that these two trains run since they're so valuable. And he's just selling out of everything. And he actually reserves the presidency of the HR. Will not have enough liquidity to float this, but just wanted to make sure he doesn't lose that on a presidency since he's lost the priority for the next stock round. So after all is said and done, looks like Blocanone ends up with priority. And in terms of the market, only the SR will be operating before the IR. So the IR's twos will certainly be running, but probably the TRs will not be. So reasonable for H, but again, locking up $200 of your capital in a presidency is always rough, especially when it makes such a large percentage of your early game portfolio. SR laying towards Kodahira. He has the presidency of the KO, so likely looking to just lay friendly track and really take advantage of these high revenue centers of Takamatsu and Kodahira. If I were SR, I would be buying a lot of these three trains and just hoping that the three trains become permanent since a lot of these companies were parred early, wasted a lot of their money on the twos and threes, and have low pars, so looking good for a permanent three train game. He only buys one though. A little bit surprised by that. H is train locked, so not going to be buying any of these trains. Probably just laying into Nihama would be my guess, so he can run all four of them. And he's going to run for 210. He pays that out. UR's operation now. Does he lay up towards Ozu? He does, and he will buy a single three train. So this will leave the KO to buy the three and the four. UR player is able to buy in his private. Bought it in a round that I think is too early. I'm not worried about the fives coming out here. So could have gotten the private company revenue one more time, but maybe he's worried about not having enough permanent train money in his company, so would prefer to have the cash there. I think personally having the presidential funds is a little more important, more flexible. And he buys in his second private. This helps the KO player as he's now able to upgrade his home token. KO probably buys a 3 and a 4 here. Does he lay the DIT into Kodahira? He does. And the twos are gone. So bad news for TR. Again, very confused why this player took this presidency, as this was a pretty predictable outcome. This leaves the KO pretty cash tight. Would have close to enough money for a 4 train, but doesn't have any private income and is nowhere near a 5 really. So if the permanents do come out soon, he needs to be a little bit careful. TR, he is going to work on getting over to the UR. UR probably not super motivated to help. With just one 3 train, can run the $20 town and then Ozu. So just let the TR lay your track for you, I think. Running a single train, going to be much worse than the 220 he was running for before. And of course, he only owns 20% of the company. I think in this case, with only 20% of the money coming to you, it makes sense to withhold. You'll get some yellow shares and you'll get 100% of the revenue when you buy in your privates. So would like to see some withholds here. He does. IR operating ahead of everyone as a result of those companies floating last operating round. Does he upgrade Nihama and start heading over to Kodahira and Maragami? He does. That is a two-hole city, so he has no tokens to defend his runs. Really needs to try and open up the map so that he doesn't get tokened out of these revenue centers. Is competing against both the SR and the KO, who could both token Nihama, but they may not be motivated to do that because they also have to potentially defend Takamatsu from an AR float later in the game. So I think he reserved the presidency of the AR, yes. So he can attack from both the west and from the south, and maybe will be successful in securing runs for at least one of those companies as a result. He runs for 90, and he actually withholds. Um, he does not have his privates for buy-in and also owns 60% of the company, controlling 80% of the revenue total. I think a payout would have been smarter there, but he disagrees. He does buy 4. Wouldn't have been able to do that without a withhold, obviously. Um, I guess if he's banking on the 3 trains being permanent and no 6s or D trains coming out, this makes sense. You can pick up the 4 trains while they're available. They'll probably be bought out by other companies. So, okay, I see the logic there. But again, I think maybe a little risky. SR probably laying Kodahira and does, of course, friendly with the other company he owns and running his 3 train. He actually tokens Kodahira, so that's not good. I think that you need to reserve that token for later in the game. And then also the Kodahira token gets him nothing. It doesn't get him any track that he wasn't able to run before, and he's not defending his runs with it. So yeah, he runs to Takamatsu instead of down south to the offboard, but this is $40 and this is $40, so really no benefit from that token. If he wanted to hit Takamatsu, he could have waited until the next operating round when the KO upgrades it and token there instead, which is a much more valuable token. He is going to buy another 4, so these trains are moving quickly, and he's going to run pretty well in the next operating round. Um, but again, we'll see what happens with the permanent trains in probably the next operating round after this. UR, he is actually laying down a KU. He has priority, so maybe looking towards floating the KU. Going to be a little bit hard for him to float it for any worthwhile par, as he's not going to be able to sell any of these TR shares. KU is a terrible company, um, but with the tokens coming out the way they are, it may be reasonable to assume it's going to have a run. The only token you're worried about in the short term, at least, is this TR token that ended up in Uejima, which would be painful, but the KU can then run east. So he pays out. KO running 2 trains. Does he upgrade in token in Kodahira? It makes a little bit more sense to do that with the KO than it does the SR, but it's still not the right move. I'd much prefer to see him upgrade Kodahira. Or sorry, I would much prefer to see him lay into the offboard and run 2 trains that way rather than wasting the token. But I imagine, based on his earlier play, we're going to see him upgrade Kodahira and then token. So, okay, he runs his 2 trains that way. It is a little bit better revenue, but it's very short-sighted, I think. Pays out. TR's operation probably looking to link up with the UR still, and he's going to try and lay the gentle curve upgrade here. That is preventable by the UR player if he's looking to be really mean. We'll see how that works. He's going to withhold again, and is he buying in privates? He should be buying in privates here. Has 107 or $270 worth of private value. Probably needs to buy it all in, even though he won't be able to buy it in for full value. And he's just buying in 1 for now. He needs to be a little bit careful that he doesn't have his expensive private, no less, just rust on the vine. I think it's much safer to, take the $30 loss in revenue and just buy it in now, because there's a good chance that the 5s could come out before the TR operates again. Blockanon does have money to float, could be looking towards the KU based on his moves with the UR. He's going to buy a KO instead, maybe looking to trash value. And then take the KU. Does need to be a little bit careful that someone else doesn't jump on that company. Probably nobody else is going to, though, because H has telegraphed that he's going to be starting the AR, and Hellas would have to sell quite heavily to take a not so great company. We'll see. Looks like he is selling, though, so he's probably going to hop on that KU. Instead, looking to compete with the presidency of the AR, very reasonable. It's going to be hard for H to defend this presidency. He has enough money for one share, and then if he sells the TR, he will not quite have enough money for a second. So he's going to have to start selling the IR, but there's only one room in the market. So I actually don't think he has the liquidity to defend here. Um, and that's a nice gift to Hellas. Batsman buying his own shares, and H is not even going to make a token effort at defending here. He's buying the SR. H has sold out of the IR as well, and maybe gives himself the opportunity to float the KU. I'm not entirely clear where he's going with this. If he loses the presidents for the AR, we'll get 200 bucks back towards his float. KO selling. Hellas probably continuing to pressure the AR. He does. And Batsman, he's going to buy a cheap IR now. H, this is his last opportunity to defend the presidency, and he does. He's going to be able to get 4 shares easily, and as a result of Batsman buying a share out of the market of the IR, may be able to sell again and try and defend. It's going to be a little bit tricky for him. He has $100 and he needs $100 more. So as it stands currently, he will not be able to defend this presidency, but we'll see if anything changes before his next opportunity. Block and own, buying an SR. Hellas probably still buying AR here. Batsman, is he just passing? He is. H is going to force Hellas to sell in order to take this presidency. And he has the opportunity of selling the SR. SR will drop if sold, so that hurts Batsman a little bit as well. Block and own, selling or buying the SR. Having just noticed that Hellas is probably going to be selling this company, I'm a little bit unclear why you would buy that when you're going to have cheaper market shares available very shortly, probably. Hellas buying the AR and Batsman passing. H doesn't have the ability to sell shares to defend. So does he just dump out of the AR now? May do that after Hellas has bought 5 shares just in order to hurt his net worth a little bit more. Block and own, buying the IR. I think when you're one of the players on the sidelines of one of these battles, you have to realize where priority is likely to end up. So, for instance, Block and own is very happy because it looks like H is probably going to be sitting on $400 of liquidity after selling out of the AR and will be giving Block and own most likely priority back. H has sold out of 2 companies and is going to have some limited options in terms of investment, though. So needs to be careful that he doesn't just lose the ability to actually invest his cash anywhere. Hellas Gaming probably selling SR here and taking the presidency of the AR. Sells a single share and does get the presidency, so nicely played to him. Batsman continuing to pass. H now sells out as expected and will be, looks like, giving Block and own the priority. Block and own can pick up another IR here. Probably not super worried about the dump. This company has a 4 train, so and actually buying just 1 share wouldn't allow that to be dumped on him anyways. And none of the other players are looking to upset that status quo, I don't think. So he does buy an IR, and now it's H's operating round in order to see what he can do with his opportunity. He has lost the president to the AR and is going to just turn around and float the KU for 100. KU is obviously a much worse company, and he actually doesn't have the liquidity to float it, so he's going to basically be reserving this presidency again. It looks like none of the other players are going to help him float it. He's going to buy paying shares, and he buys a UR. So he's basically just kind of self-destructed in this stock round. I think he'll be coming in last place as a result of these decisions. He passes, and it looks like Block and own has priority as expected. KO running 2 trains as a result of his tokens, does have good routes for both of them. Probably upgrades Marigami here. Needs to upgrade it to 2 holes to be able to run through it, but that will also open up an opportunity for the IR to run through it as well, which is a little bit unfortunate for him. This is the downside of using your tokens on Coda Hero, is that you really can't isolate the track very well. Instead, going to be laying from Takamatsu. Didn't expect that. Does it improve his run very much? I guess it allows him to hit 4 stops with the 4, but he's still only hitting 2 with the 3. I don't think he was going to be able to fully utilize his trains no matter what he upgraded there, but I think upgrading Marugami or Takamatsu would have been probably better money for him. He's going to run for 200. He pays it out. He's the majority investor there. Makes sense. AR, first operation, could buy a 4 and a 5 here, I believe. Yes. So probably we'll see Brown open up right here. This is bad news, as noted, for the owner of the South IO, who, well, I guess he could buy it in before he buys his trains. Um, so maybe he anticipated being able to steal the AR in the last operating round, and that's why he didn't take the $30 hit by buying it in earlier. We'll see if he does that. He buys the 4, he buys his private, and now he will have money for the 5. So very well played. Does he have money for an $80 track? He does, just barely. So could look to get into Takamatsu, and again, the the SR and KO are unable to defend. Looking pretty good for Hellas. UR, he has guaranteed that he will not be the president of the KU, so probably not super interested in laying into Kubikawa. Maybe looking now to upgrade Ozu. Instead, I'm going to be linking up with Kuchi, and this minimally improves his run. Going to be running for 100 instead of 80. Does have to worry a little bit about TR tokening Ozu now, but now that we're in brown, he could immediately bypass it, so not the biggest risk. SR, does he upgrade his home tile here? He's going to upgrade Takamatsu, and he will be able to run full track with his 2 trains. Paying for 270. IR, is he lay towards Marugami? He's going to upgrade his home tile, and he's running 2 trains as well for 240, and he similarly pays out. TR, yellow zone, does not have any privates to buy in at this point. Maybe just looking to pay out. Not going to be getting much money from the company, but will have some company treasury to mess around with as a result. He's going to look to bypass the DIT and holds onto his token for now. KO, we are in brown, so could see an upgrade of Kodahira or Takamatsu, but upgrading Marugami probably is in his best interest because it will get him into that brown offboard as well twice. So he does that, and will be running full track with both of his trains now. Running for 280, does he pay out? He does. And you are, not sure where you are heads here. Could upgrade Ozu and look to get into Matsuyama, but there's a little bit of a standoff here between the UR and the TR, because whoever upgrades Ozu opens up Matsuyama potentially for the other player's token. The way to get around that is if UR upgrades Ozu with just 1 hole, tokens it, then he can get Matsuyama assured. Instead, going to be laying Kubikawa, so he's preventing a suitcase. I don't know if that's really a priority in this game. A little bit surprised to see him doing this. Runs for 100 and pays it out. SR has all the track in the world, probably just looking to optimize by upgrading Kodahira or Takamatsu here. Could upgrade Kodahira as he's going to be running 2 trains out of it. And he will be paying for 320, so very good for him. IR, does he now look to head into Marugami? Would get himself a run into Kodahira by doing that. IR linking up with Kodahira, and will be running a little bit better as a result. Paying out 320. AR only has track for 1 train right now, and I don't think there's a way for him to get a second run just yet. We'll see if he's going to rush down to Takamatsu. Probably would like to see him do that, and as a result of the tokens on Kodahira, I may look to drop a token there. He is telegraphing a run into Takamatsu in the future, and going to run his 1 train for just 70 right now. Running his second company, again, only owns 20% of this company, and he's going to be upgrading Ozu, and actually doesn't give the ability to run into Matsuyama, but with the brown track available, that is in the pipeline. He is paying that out as well, and we'll pass into the next stock round. Let's just take a look at the game state. Batsman and Blockanone are leading by a fair margin. H is actually doing a little bit better than I expected, but still, I think favorite to come in last place in this game. Hellas is technically in last place right now, but will be having much better runs for himself in the next operating round. And unfortunately, he's just saddled with this TR company, which isn't doing much for him. We'll see if he's able to make this into a better situation for himself. Blockenone has a ton of cash going into this stock round. Could actually pressure for the KU presidency, but H will have enough liquidity to defend, so maybe just wants to trash it a little bit. We'll see what he decides. Um, he is not far off from permanent train money in the UR with a withhold, but I don't know that he's going to be able to get there, unfortunately. With a run of just 100, he's going to be a few bucks short. So if he could get another 20 bucks or so, he would be pretty close, but I don't think that's going to be possible with the current track. He is operating fairly early in operating order with the UR, so he's not going to be able to take advantage of other companies' upgrades. Blockenone, he is buying an AR, does recognize the potential of this company and happy to take the cheaper market shares. He's pretty close to his cert limit, which is unfortunate for him. There will be no yellow shares in this game, it doesn't look like, unless the TR somehow finds its way in there. So he's just going to be maxed out very early in this stock round. Hellas is buying an IR. This company is running pretty well and has fairly cheap shares, so not unreasonable. This does open up a potential dump opportunity, but again, without any yellow shares in the game, I don't know that you want to dump a company this late, especially if we're not looking at rusting events. Batsman, he is buying his own SR. SR is running very well, and he takes the cheaper market share. H, he is investing in his own IR, so right now this will be floating up. And he has 2 presidencies, so we'll have a little bit of a cert advantage on the player with just 1 presidency, which I believe is Blockenone with only the UR. Blockenone's last share purchase, and he's going to buy a KU. I assume he's going to be trashing the share value a little bit. I don't think you want to invest in the KU here. Company will be running 2 5 trains, it looks like, but it is very vulnerable to tokens. The TR player is not the presidency of KU, so I think the odds of these tokens being laid friendly to the KU is very low. Hellas buying an AR. Batsman is also buying an AR. H will buy an SR. This company is also now floating up. Blockenone, does he sell the KU and buy something better? He is passing. That's surprising. I'm not entirely sure why he's parking money in the KU. And I'm also surprised that H is not floating the KU. Hellas buying a TR, so he is going to give the opportunity for Blockenone to sell out of the TR, which I think I would be eager to do. And Batsman is going to buy a UR now. H, does he start floating the KU now that he has used most of his money? He's going to buy an AR share, and he gets it for 70. So now has $200 left. He needs to put buy both shares to float the KU. That will take the rest of his money. We'll see if he does that. Blockenone, he is now selling out of the TR as kind of expected. And what does he buy instead? He's got pressure for the KU presidency. H still can defend here, but it's pretty funny that he's finding himself in this position over and over again. Just a consequence of himself reserving presidencies and then losing priority by doing so. Hellas, he is not going to reach his cert limit and buys probably his last share here in the KO, which will also be floating up. So this is good news for Batsman. He is max invested on 2 very well-running companies, and they'll both be floating up. Batsman, he has reached his cert limit and actually floats the KU. I think that H will keep this presidency, but he's probably happy to have the help from the other players, unless, of course, they sell down and just hurt his net worth, which would be pretty mean. H does defend the presidency. Blockenone, he is passing. Hellas is passing. He could have afforded a share in the TR, but looks like he's not motivated to do that. Batsman, he is passing as well. H will buy a TR, which loses him priority, doesn't open himself up for a dump just yet. And we will see, are these players just going to sit on these KU shares? I think that's not a great idea. Looks like they are, though. That's surprising. I guess Blockenone kind of holds the fate of the KU in his hands with these 2 tokens. We'll see. I'm not sure why they're sitting on those shares. It's going to have 2 5 trains, but again, leaving yourself open to a dump potentially, and it's not going to be operating for one of these operating rounds. The market has $4,000 in it, with several companies running for $3,000 a pop. They're going to be taking $900+ out of the bank in the course of these three operating rounds. So the market could break here. KU is not going to run, and it will put another $900 back into the bank. But I think we're still borderline. We may see a pretty fast game here, especially if that six train doesn't come out, which nobody is really in a position or particularly motivated to do. So this may be the last operating round, in which case probably Batsman takes it. He has the highest revenue, he is cert locked, and has more shares than Blocanon. So we'll see if that is what comes to pass. I think if you're one of the other players, you're looking at this and you have to say, we need to find a way to bring out this six train to rust these three trains on Batsman. And probably Hellas is the player to do it. He has a fair amount of company cash, he has market shares. He could pay out once or even withhold with the TR, get a few bucks into the AR, and shuffle trains to bring out the six. It would hurt him, but it would also extend the game and give him a chance to take the win from Batsman long term. First operation of KU needs to upgrade this track if it's available, and it looks like it is not because this is here and this is here. So we'll not be able to upgrade that track. Instead, may need to look to upgrading one of these tracks so it can give itself 2 runs. Instead, going to upgrade Ozu, which is interesting. That doesn't really help anybody. I guess potentially helps the IR, which is other company. Unsure about the logic there. I think you need to look towards upgrading one of these green tracks to give yourself the opportunity for 2 runs. Buys two. He actually only buys 1 5 train. Why would you only buy 1 5 train? Is he worried about the 6 coming out? I don't know why he would be. He has a 4 and he would end up with 2 permanent trains, only has 2 companies. That seems like a huge fumble not to buy 2 5 trains there. I don't get that. Upgrades Takamatsu, going to be running even better as a result, and he pays out 340. I think Batsman is highly favored to win this game at this point in time. SR also running. He's going to just maximize his routes and running for, looks like 350. Absolutely monstrous runs. UR, as noted, doesn't have enough money to withhold for the 5 train, I don't believe. He would have to drop a token to hit Imbari, and I think that would prevent him from having the money even with that $60 revenue center. He's going to actually pay to upgrade Kuchi, and he can hit that track, but I guess he's not eager to get the 5 train. So he pays that out. And I think if only 1 5 train is bought, the 6 train obviously is not coming out, and the bank definitely breaks here. So this is pretty good news for Batsman. Upgrading Saiju, getting a run into Imbari for the other companies. And he's paying for 340. He actually pays it out. Nobody's withholding, so nobody's pushing, nobody's pressuring for the 6 train. And AR is probably going to be laying into Takamatsu, and by doing so, he's not going to actually have enough money to token, so he's not going to be able to impact anybody else's run, but he does get a much better run for himself. That is painful, though. He's not going to be able to take full advantage of his trains because he only has the 1 token kind of in an isolated location. TR has 1 train. He links up with Matsuyama. Does he drop a token there? He actually tokens in Saiju. I don't know that that really hurts anyone. I don't think that the SR or KO are looking to run through that track, and this allows the UR to run into Imbari. Also allows the UR to cut his runs in half with a token of Matsuyama, so questionable. He's going to run for 150 and he pays it out. The market should be looking very unhealthy. $3,000 left, and I think we will be seeing the bank break here. A little bit confused about the decision not to buy a second 5 there. That's unusual. KO probably, so he's going to be looking to bypass this DIT, and he is running for 370. Again, I think if we look at the spreadsheet, Batsman should be running away with this at this point. He is running for, almost half again what the other players are, and he was already in the lead at the start, so looking great for him. SR, he is going to be getting into the offboard. Again, this is just so he can bypass this DIT, and he is running for 370 as well. Did he not bypass the DIT? So I guess by this upgrade, he actually can hit Takamatsu and Kodahira both twice, and that's a little more efficient than bypassing the DIT. So I'm sure he's done the math. I haven't really looked into it. KU running 1 train. and he will be able to hit the offboard for 60, but he's actually not able to take advantage of hitting both Coochie and the offboard. Um, but he does do that gray or brown tile upgrade, which will allow him to upgrade this in the future. With only a 5 train, though, I don't think he has the stops to hit the offboard and Coochie. He should not. Does he buy the second 5 train here? He's shuffling trains, so he's going to run a 5 train in the IR. I'll note that he could have done this last operating round, and he's still losing a operation of the train he bought against operating order. So just sloppy play. UR, he's passing his track, and he will pay out for 140, it looks like. IR probably buying the second 5 train here, but it's going to be too little too late. I think the bank breaks and Batsman takes the game. He's upgrading his home token, running for 210, pays out, and does buy the 5. AR now. He is looking to head over to Aikida, potentially into Kuchi, to get a better run for his second train. Didn't he have 2 trains? Did he shuffle trains around? He must have bought the train over into the TR, and he actually didn't shuffle the money out of the company, so he's not going to be looking to bring out the um, 6. He also now has token money in the AR, but doesn't have a second train to take advantage of with it. So just kind of unfortunate for him in the way things have broken. He does lay a token in Nihama, which accomplishes absolutely nothing. So just just a waste of money. Running his train, he probably has a little bit. No, he could have run that track already, so that token is actually worthless. TR running 2 trains now. Doesn't really have great track for 2 trains. Actually, it does okay. It can run into Kodahira and hit Takamatsu from Imbari, and then it can also run from Kuchi with its second train. So we'll be running quite well, but uh, basically has thrown away a token on his other companies, so questionable. Interesting. So he's not going to hit Kuchi. I guess he doesn't need to because he can hit Imbari twice and he's going to be hitting 40 value cities with his second company no matter what he does. So not necessary to hit Kuchi. I would have liked to see him upgrade Nihama here. He is hitting that track. It would give him 10 extra dollars. Instead, upgrading Nahari, which does nothing for him. A little bit confused by that. Final operating round in the game, I think. Only $1,900 left, and with multiple companies running for $300-400 should go away quite quickly. He is going to run for 370. He actually doesn't even lay any track. He's very confident in his victory. SR probably doing the same thing and running for 370. KU with two trains now. He should upgrade this track and get 2 runs. And does, but this just means the bank is even closer to breaking. UR now will be passing his track and just running out for 140. IR running 2 trains, does have access to Kodahira and Takamatsu as well as the offboard, so will be running very well. And he is actually helping Kubikawa. That makes sense. It's his other company to get a second run, but I believe he's bought the train out of that company, so it actually has, no, he does have 2 runs. So it makes sense, but I think the bank breaks, unfortunately, before he has the opportunity to take advantage of that. He pays out 450. AR running a single train has been tokened out of the offboard, but can hit Takamatsu still, so not too upset about that. He pays for 220, and how much money is in the bank? 227. So it's actually very close. TR is running 2 trains and will break it. Can't even lay track or do an upgrade to try and prevent that. So he does look to open up for a D run in the future, but of course the game ends here. So should be Batsman. He takes it with a pretty comfortable margin of victory. Hellas comes in last, following H and Blockanone, which are closely contending for second place. So I think that this all just comes down to Batsman securing himself 2 companies that he's able to lay synergistic track for and take advantage of very high revenue center area of the map. There was some sloppy play with the tokens, and I think that the dump of the TR on Hellas Gaming or maybe rather his decision to take that presidency really backfired in the end. And I'm still at a loss for why the KU didn't buy both five trains, although ultimately I don't think it changes the outcome of the game. So well played to Batsman, able to take the win here, and we will be back with additional games in the future. Thanks for listening.